sunny day. Since I'm a CHID major, this is serving as part of my senior thesis, but I'm also a dancer. So my research kind of combined all my majors and my interests in looking at individual and collective embodiment, exploring solidarity and difference through the language of dance. So currently, given our political climate, the ability to navigate different opinions and communicate across difference is super crucial in hopes of promoting the social changes that we want to see in the future. And if your year has been like mine, you've probably been encountering these types of conversations almost daily. For me, that meant in every class that I've been taking, at home with my roommates, at family dinners, on the streets even, and these conversations tend to get particularly heated, but for good reason. Now, after I attended the Women's March in February, I was really intrigued and inspired by all the different signs that people had made that they used to enhance these types of conversations. They would be used to start conversations, and I wanted to learn about how art changed or affected social change. Now, since I'm also a Spanish major, I'm pretty interested in thinking about how language and communication shapes the way we think and understand things and relate to one another. And once becoming proficient in Spanish, I kind of began to rely on the language to give myself a new perspective. So when something's seemingly really difficult for me, I kind of have started to rely on both languages to think through it, and find that sometimes it even changes my personality and gives me a deeper understanding. So when thinking about what I want to do for my senior thesis, I realized that when I studied communication, I thought about dance and how actually I've been doing this for a really long time, using a different language to give me a new perspective, and it really changes how you think about things. But dance is a little different in that I found that expressing myself through dance often feels way more rewarding and gives me a deeper and complex understanding, or more complex understanding than verbal or written language sometimes. So I want to know why. So I decided to look at dance with a linguistic perspective. And linguistics are actually really important because they dictate what can be said and how. And language is inherently really intersectional, and many of the current social issues are influenced heavily by language. So I decided that my research questions will look at how does dance function as a language and how might linguistic qualities affect communication across these themes of difference. And more specifically thinking about, in terms of themes of difference, looking at resisting oppression. So my thesis features the unique linguistic conventions of dance make it an effective language to use in aid of communication across difference. And this is greatly thanks to individual and collective embodiment, which is pretty much how dance functions as a language. That we think first an idea and it's embodied, so it's this really individual understanding because only you can know what a sensation within your body feels like. Only your form of dance is embodied by you. But dance is also a collective art form, and it always has been. And so it has a really profound ability to build community as well. And this is all through kind of how dance functions as a language. So the linguistics of dance kind of have two different levels. It has a theoretical linguistic set that are much like any verbal or written language that you know. And it also has a physical subset that deal with the body. So the theoretical ones would be like vocabulary and syntax. A vocabulary, if you think of like the syllabus of ballet movement, and a syntax could be something like a choreographic phrase where one movement is commenting on the other. These are both ways of communicating through dance. However, dance is slightly different than verbal or written languages because it relies heavily on semanticity or associative ties in order to create meaning. So Henrietta Bennerman is a dance linguist, and she's kind of coined dance communication as being abstract messaging because it's really symbolic and it is kind of abstract. And so it relies on context clues and the ability to kind of evoke a connotation that's emotional in order to get some sort of response or perception in an audience member that seems culturally familiar to them. So for instance, if you think of a line of dancers that is walking really intently down the stage, that might connotate some sort of kind of like militant effect. Now, since dance is also performative, it has these physical sets of linguistic conventions. So proprioception is your individual ability to understand where your body's placement is in space, and it's also your individual ability to embody an idea. Kinesthesia is your muscle sense. It allows for the sensation of movement and also corresponds to syntax. And then physical resonance is a dancer's ability to emote or evoke some sort of meaning. which is tied to abstract messaging. And you can think of that as being like facial expressions by dancers or their quality of movement. So what are social implications of this? It's a language that seems really individual because it's all passed through the body, giving a deeper understanding of something that we may not normally be able to say with words. But because it's a collective art form, a really unique sense of relation is built between dancers by embodying this sort of communication. Even dancers relate because when dancing in unison, for example, everyone's executing the same movement, but they each are interpreting it on their own individual level. So I found that the dance community is kind of unlike any other community that I'm a part of. For some reason, that when you meet a dancer for the first time, you have this automatic, really strong connection. So I wanted to know why. I interviewed professional dancer, choreographer, and our professor, Rachel Lincoln, about this, and she thought it was something having to do with the physical intimacy that we experience. That really becomes normalized through dance. So often we're sitting in close quarters, kind of like you guys are right now, and physical intimacy really isn't, it's not really a thing. It's not something that we experience on a normal day-to-day basis. But in dance, that's something that's accepted and encouraged, and it's how we rely to communicate. So it builds a really profound sense of community. And what's really cool is that because dance is an embodied language, to an extent, this sense of community and physical intimacy that's observed on stage can actually be transcended into the audience. In part, this is due to what's called a mirror systems hypothesis, which pretty much states that thanks to our proprioceptive sense, by watching someone do a familiar movement, it's as if you feel a similar sensation as if you were doing it yourself. And this is kind of why dancers watch other dance to build muscle memory. So to an extent, by watching dance, the physical intimacy that you're observing on stage is felt within the dance community, within the audience. Also, community can be built within the audience through affect or collective response. So based on the content that people are seeing, the meaning that's being evoked through pieces. And you can kind of see this manifest after a show when all the audience is leaving the lobby and everyone's kind of buzzing about the same moment, like that really cool thing that happened in the piece, or this dance made me feel like this. When you hear this conversation over and over throughout the lobby. So according to social theorist Emil Durkheim, this sense of community and building solidarity is actually really important in promoting social change because it allows you to learn the individual rights of others. And this is important in building solidarity, which dance sets up a perfect platform for due to its ability to construct community through its communication. And in general, dance history shows us that so many styles of dance evolved directly out of circumstances of oppression and was actively used to deconstruct social hierarchies and resist different types of oppression. In my research, I focus on two different styles. I use ballet and stepping, which is a dance form that's based on body percussion that rose out of the black-minded communities in South Africa. But both were used and are tangible examples of how dance communication successfully achieves and promotes social change. So now I'm going to have you watch a short video, and I'll ask you to write down about 5 words that you think are being evoked in this.
5 words that what?
List 5 words that you feel are being evoked within this piece. All right, now share with the people sitting next to you, at least a couple of people, your words and see if you have any in common.
Together, there's one that I was thinking of. We can get that now.
All right. Please raise your hand if you found that you had any commonality between the words that you guys discussed, or that you saw were invoked in the piece. All right. So I know this wasn't a formal study, but I wanted to give you a tangible example to remind you how dance functions as a language and to show that through its individual and collective embodiment, it has a unique way of not only creating meaning, but building community that's both on content and through actual physical embodiment. Communication through dance can provide a more tangible platform for creating change and speaking across difference. So the language of dance should be recognized for the profound linguistic qualities that help shape the conversation. In advocating for making dance more accessible and promoting arts education, I believe that the term social movement is used for a reason, and I like to think that that movement could come from dance. And also thank you to my advisor, Hannah. Any questions? Yeah.
So, as a Spanish major, you must be aware that in many Spanish-speaking cultures, people come in, body contact is much more common for kiss hello.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the idea that dance is powerful because it involves physical intimacy is maybe a specifically American perspective? Because it's, I think, only, many other cultures have a lot more physical intimacy in daily life.
Yeah, that's such a great question. That could be. I mean, especially within, like the Seattle zones, the Seattle freeze, like that's something that's so not normalized within our society. But when I lived in Ecuador, I did find that I automatically built relationships with people so quickly there just because of that, the physical intimacy that you automatically felt. But I do think that there's also something profound that's within the dance community, also even no matter where you go, that still is a little bit different than just having a normal social relationship. There's something about the physicality of it that by understanding, and you kind of have this understanding within each other of what it feels like to embody ideas and to communicate that way, and I think that that also adds like another level of that depth of connection, I guess. Yes.
So what's next for you, and how are you going to build in your activism and dance work in the future?
Yeah, well this summer I'm taking the time to actually just focus on dance for a little while in a program in New York, but when I get back, I'm starting to teach dance classes, at least so far, at some local community centers where I actually get the opportunity to teach a bilingual dance class, which I'm really excited about. But it's definitely a way that I want to make dance more accessible and involving also younger kids especially, giving them not only the opportunity to learn and train in dance, but to use it, to get to perform, to put it out there and actually make them, use it for a reason, something they care about, and incorporating that into choreography and performances, things like that. That's definitely a new step for me that I'm excited to try out and see how I want to form it and everything. But within the next community center that I'm working at, I'll be kind of starting their program there, so there's a lot of room for experimenting and seeing where I want to take that.